The morning sun cast long shadows across the rocky terrain of New Haven as Dr. Emma Walsh adjusted her field scanner. The device beeped steadily as it searched for new plant and animal life forms. This was her favorite part of being a xenobiologist. On the frontier colony, every day brought the possibility of discovering something amazing. "Emma, we should head back soon," called Dr. Marcus Red from behind a cluster of purple-leaf trees. "The weather reports show storms coming in this afternoon." Emma looked up from her scanner and wiped sweat from her forehead. They had been walking through the wilderness for 3 hours already. Her team of scientists was supposed to catalog new species for the colony database. So far they had found 12 new types of plants and 6 small creatures that looked like colorful lizards. "Just give me 10 more minutes," Emma replied. "My scanner is picking up something interesting about half a mile north of here." Dr. Lisa Grant emerged from behind a large boulder where she had been collecting rock samples. "What kind of reading are you getting?" she asked as she packed her tools into her backpack. Emma frowned at the display screen. "It's big, much bigger than anything we've seen out here. The biosignature suggests it's some kind of large predator, but the readings are strange. It's not moving much." Marcus walked over and looked at the scanner over Emma's shoulder. "Maybe it's sleeping. Large predators usually rest during the day. Or maybe it's dead," Lisa added with a shrug. "We've seen plenty of animal remains out here. The ecosystem is pretty harsh." Emma felt a strange pull of curiosity. Something about the readings made her want to investigate further. "Come on, let's at least take a look. If it's dangerous, we'll keep our distance." The 3 scientists walked carefully through the alien landscape. New Haven's wilderness was beautiful but unpredictable. Tall trees with silver bark stretched toward the sky while strange flowers bloomed in colors that had no names on Earth. The air smelled like cinnamon and rain. As they got closer to the biosignature, Emma noticed something else on her scanner. "There are traces of blood," she said quietly. "A lot of blood." Marcus stopped walking and put his hand on his sidearm. "All colony survey teams carried basic weapons for protection." "Maybe we should call for backup," he suggested. "Let's just see what we're dealing with first," Emma said. She was the team leader and had made the final decision. They moved forward slowly and quietly. When they reached the top of a small hill, Emma gasped at what she saw below. In a clearing surrounded by jagged rocks lay a creature unlike anything in their databases. It was huge, at least 8 feet tall, even while lying on its side. Its body was covered in scales that looked like polished black stone. Each scale caught the sunlight and reflected it back like a mirror. "What is that thing?" Lisa whispered. The creature had 4 powerful limbs that ended in claws as long as kitchen knives. Its head was massive with a mouth full of teeth that could easily tear through metal. But what struck Emma most were its eyes. Even from a distance, she could see they were a bright amber color and seemed to hold intelligence. "It's incredible," Emma breathed. "I've never seen anything like it." Marcus was already backing away. "It's a monster. Look at those claws and teeth. That thing could kill all 3 of us without breaking a sweat." Emma noticed something that made her heart race. The creature was covered in wounds. Deep gashes ran along its sides and legs. Some of the cuts were fresh and still bleeding, while others looked several days old. "It's injured," she said. "Badly injured?" "Good," Marcus replied. "That means it can't chase us when we get out of here." But Emma was already walking down the hill toward the creature. Something about its situation reminded her of injured animals. She had helped as a child back on Earth. Her grandmother had taught her that all living things deserved compassion, no matter how scary they looked. "Emma, don't," Lisa called after her. "That thing is dangerous." Emma approached slowly with her hands visible and empty. The creature's amber eyes tracked her movement, but it made no effort to get up. She could see now that some of its wounds were infected. Without treatment, it would probably die within a day or 2. "Hey there," she said softly, the same way she used to talk to frightened animals. "I'm not going to hurt you." The creature's eyes focused on her face. Emma was amazed by what she saw there. This was not the blank stare of a simple predator. There was awareness and intelligence in those amber depths. There was also pain and what looked almost like sadness. She knelt down about 10 feet away from the creature's head. "Someone really hurt you, didn't they?" she whispered. Marcus and Lisa caught up to her, both breathing hard from running down the hill. "Emma, get away from that thing right now," Marcus ordered. "We need to report this to colony security immediately." "Look at it," Emma said without taking her eyes off the creature. "Really look at it. This isn't just some mindless beast, it's intelligent." "It's a predator," Lisa said firmly. "Those claws and teeth didn't evolve for eating plants. That thing is built to kill." Emma studied the wounds more carefully. Many of them showed a pattern that suggested they came from claws and teeth similar to the creature's own. "I think other members of its species did this," she said slowly. "It was attacked by its own kind." The creature made a low sound that was somewhere between a growl and a moan. Emma felt her heart break a little at the pain in that sound. "We should put it out of its misery," Marcus said, reaching for his weapon. "It's suffering." "No," Emma said sharply, standing up to block his path. "We're going to help it." Marcus stared at her like she had lost her mind. "Help it? Emma, that thing could eat us for lunch." Emma looked back at the wounded creature. Despite its fearsome appearance, something about it reminded her of her younger brother Jake, who had died in a transport accident 2 years ago. Jake had always been the one to bring home injured birds and stray cats. He would have wanted to help this creature too. "I'm going to call him Jake," she said quietly. "You're naming it?" Lisa asked in disbelief. Emma nodded. "And we're going to save his life." Emma stood outside Administrator Robert Hayes' office, still covered in dirt from her rescue mission. Through the glass walls, she could see Hayes talking angrily with Dr. Marcus Reed. Their voices were too quiet to hear, but their gestures made it clear they were discussing her decision to help the creature. 2 days had passed since Emma had defied direct orders. After finding Jake wounded in the wilderness, she had convinced her reluctant team to help move him to an abandoned research facility 15 miles from the main colony. The building had been used for studying local plant life before funding was cut 6 months ago. Tom Bradley, her research assistant, walked up beside her with a medical supply bag. "How is he doing?" Tom asked quietly. "Better," Emma replied. "The antibiotics are working?" "Most of his wounds have stopped bleeding, and he's been eating the meat we brought him." Tom nodded but looked worried. "Emma, people are starting to talk. Security Chief David Park has been asking questions about missing medical supplies." Before Emma could respond, the office door opened. Marcus emerged first, his face red with anger. Administrator Hayes followed close behind, his expression stern and official. "Dr. Walsh," Hayes said in his formal administrator voice, "we need to discuss your recent activities." Emma straightened her shoulders. "If this is about Jake, then yes, we should talk." "Jake?" Hayes raised an eyebrow. "You name that thing?" "He's not a thing," Emma replied firmly. "He's an intelligent being who was injured and needed help." Marcus stepped forward. "Emma, that creature is dangerous. We have no idea what it's capable of. The Colony Council has voted unanimously to have it destroyed before it can hurt anyone." Emma felt her heart sink. "You can't do that. Jake hasn't threatened anyone. He's been nothing but gentle since we brought him to the facility." "Gentle?" Hayes looked at her like she was speaking a foreign language. "Dr. Walsh, that creature has claws that could cut through steel and teeth designed to tear flesh. How exactly is that gentle?" "Because I've seen him up close," Emma said, her voice growing stronger. "I've watched him carefully move his head away when I change his bandages so he won't accidentally scratch me. I've seen him refuse food when he thinks there isn't enough for everyone. He's protecting us, not threatening us." Dr. Reed shook his head. "Emma, I think the stress of fieldwork has affected your judgment. You're projecting human emotions onto a predator." "Come with me," Emma said suddenly. "Both of you. Come see Jake for yourselves before you make any decisions." Hayes looked uncertain. "That sounds dangerous." "It's not," Emma insisted. "Tom has been with me every day. He can tell you that Jake has never shown any aggressive behavior." Tom nodded reluctantly. She's right, sir. The creature. Jake. He's been very calm, almost friendly. 2 hours later, Emma led a small group through the forest toward the abandoned facility. Besides Hayes and Reed, Security Chief David Park had insisted on coming along with 2 armed guards. Tom walked beside Emma, carrying fresh bandages and pain medication. "This is incredibly foolish," Park muttered for the third time. "We should have bombed that building from orbit." "You'll see," Emma said confidently. "Jake isn't what you think he is." The abandoned research facility was a simple metal building surrounded by overgrown gardens. Emma had set up a makeshift medical area in the main laboratory. When they entered, they could hear low rumbling sounds coming from the back room. "Is that growling?" one of the guards asked nervously. Emma smiled. "He's purring. Cake purrs when he's content." She led them to the doorway of the back room. Inside, the massive creature was lying on a pile of blankets Emma had brought from her apartment. His amber eyes opened when he heard footsteps, and his head turned toward the group. Hayes stepped backward involuntarily. "My God, it's enormous." Jake's eyes found Emma immediately. The rumbling sound grew louder, and what could only be described as happiness appeared in his amber gaze. He tried to stand up, but winced in pain from his healing wounds. "Stay down, boy," Emma said gently, walking into the room. "You need to rest." To everyone's amazement, Jake settled back down onto the blankets. His huge head followed Emma's movements. As she approached, when she knelt beside him, he carefully moved his massive snout closer to her hand. "He recognizes you," Tom observed with wonder. Emma smiled and gently stroked the creature's scaled forehead. Jake closed his eyes in the purring. Sound grew even louder. "We've become friends," she said simply. "This is impossible," Dr. Reed whispered. "Predators don't form emotional bonds with other species." Emma looked up at him. Then maybe Jake isn't just a predator. Maybe he's something more. She had spent hours studying Jake over the past 2 days. His behavior suggested intelligence, far beyond what anyone expected. He had learned to recognize different people by their voices. He understood when Emma was trying to help him and cooperated during medical treatments. Most remarkably, he had started trying to communicate. "Watch this," Emma said. She held up one finger. "Jake, how many?" The creature looked at her finger, then made one short, controlled growl. Emma held up 2 fingers. "How many now?" Jake made 2 separate growls, pausing between them. "He can count," she announced to the stunned group. Park shook his head. "Counting doesn't make it safe. Smart predators are more dangerous, not less." But Hayes was studying Jake with new interest. "What else can he do?" Emma stood up and walked to the far side of the room. "Jake, come here." The creature carefully got to his feet, moving slowly because of his injuries. He walked across the room and stopped directly in front of Emma, then sat down like a trained dog. "Good boy," Emma said, patting his massive shoulder. Hayes looked thoughtful. "This changes things," he said slowly. "No, it doesn't," Park interrupted. "Intelligent or not, that thing is still an apex predator. It belongs in a cage or dead." Jake's eyes focused on Park when he heard the hostile tone. A low warning. Growl rumbled in his throat, but he made no move to attack. Instead, he positioned himself slightly between Emma and the security chief. "He's protecting me," Emma realized aloud. Dr. Reed frowned. "Or he's deciding which of us to eat first." Emma felt frustration building inside her. "Why can't you see?" "What I see. Jake isn't a monster. He's family." The word hung in the air like a challenge. Hayes looked from Emma to Jake and back again. "Dr. Walsh, I need you to understand something. This colony has 3,000 people depending on me to keep them safe. I can't take risks based on sentiment." "This isn't sentiment," Emma replied. Firmly, "this is science. Jake represents a completely new form of intelligent life. We have a responsibility to study and protect him, not destroy him." Hayes was quiet for a long moment, watching Jake watch Emma. Finally, he spoke. "You have 1 week to prove that creature can coexist safely with humans. After that, I'll have to follow the council's directive." Emma nodded, knowing it wasn't much time but grateful for any chance at all. "Thank you." As the group prepared to leave, Jake made a soft whining sound. Emma turned back to him. "I'll be back tomorrow," she promised. "Tom will bring you dinner tonight." Jake tilted his massive head, and Emma could swear she saw understanding in his amber eyes. 1 week to save a life. Emma was determined not to waste a single day. Emma walked through the colony's main street with her head held high, but she could feel every pair of eyes watching her. 3 days had passed since Administrator Hayes had given her 1 week to prove Jake was safe. Those 3 days had been the worst of her life. "There goes the monster lady," someone whispered loudly enough for her to hear. Emma kept walking toward the supply depot. She needed more medical supplies for Jake's recovery, but getting them had become nearly impossible. Most shopkeepers refused to serve her, and those who did charge double the normal prices. At the colony's central plaza, a crowd had gathered around a makeshift stage. Dr. Marcus Reed stood behind a podium, addressing at least 200 colonists. Emma's heart sank as she recognized what was happening. Another public meeting about the creature threat. "The thing Dr. Walsh is protecting killed 6 farm animals last night," Reed announced to gasps from the crowd. "Livestock worth thousands of credits destroyed in minutes." Emma pushed through the crowd toward the stage. "That's a lie," she called out. "Jake hasn't left the research facility. He's still too injured to travel that far." The crowd turned to stare at her with hostile faces. A woman near the front shook her head in disgust. "How can you defend that monster after what it did?" "Jake didn't kill any animals," Emma said firmly. "I was with him all yesterday evening. He was sleeping." Reed smiled coldly from the stage. "Dr. Walsh, the security cameras recorded a large creature moving through Sector 7 last night. The timing matches exactly with the livestock deaths." Emma felt confused. The cameras had recorded something, but it couldn't have been Jake. Then it was a different creature. There might be others of his species in the area. "Oh, so now there are more of them?" A man in the crowd shouted. "How many monsters are you hiding from us?" The crowd began to murmur angrily. Emma realized she had made a mistake by suggesting there might be other creatures like Jake nearby. Fear was spreading through the group like wildfire. "People, please listen," Emma tried to speak over the growing noise. "Jake is gentle and intelligent. He would never hurt innocent animals." "Gentle?" Reed laughed from the stage. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is what happens when someone spends too much time alone with dangerous predators. Dr. Walsh has developed an unhealthy emotional attachment to a killer." The crowd erupted in angry shouts. Someone threw a piece of fruit that splattered against Emma's shoulder. She looked around desperately for a friendly face but found none. Even people she had known for months were looking at her like she had lost her mind. "You're putting our children in danger," a mother yelled while holding a young boy close to her side. Emma tried one more time to reach them. "If you could just see Jake for yourselves, you would understand. He's not a monster. He's a living, thinking being who deserves our protection." "It belongs in a cage," someone shouted from the back. "It belongs dead," another voice added. Emma felt tears starting to form in her eyes, but she refused to let them fall in front of this hostile crowd. She turned and walked away, as quickly as she could while angry voices followed her. By the time she reached her apartment building, a group of children had gathered outside. They looked to be between 8 and 12 years old. When they saw her approaching, they began chanting, monster lover, Emma loves a monster." One of the children threw a small rock that bounced off the building wall near Emma's head. She hurried inside and locked the door behind her, finally allowing the tears to come. Her apartment felt cold and empty. 3 days ago, she had been a respected scientist with friends and colleagues who valued her work. Now she was treated like a crazy person who talked to imaginary friends. Emma's communication device beeped with an incoming message. She hoped it might be Tom with some good news, but instead she found an official notice from Administrator Hayes. Her security clearance had been suspended. She was no longer allowed to access any colony facilities without supervision. Another beep brought a second message. This one from Tom. "Emma, I'm sorry. My supervisor says I can't work with you anymore. They threaten to fire me if I keep helping." With the creature project, I hope you understand. Emma sat down heavily on her couch. Tom had been her last ally in the scientific community. Without his help, she couldn't continue caring for Jake properly. The creature still needed daily medical attention and fresh food. A third message arrived from Dr. Lisa Grant. Emma, there's a petition going around asking Hayes to have you removed from the colony for public safety reasons. It already has over 1,000 signatures. Maybe you should consider requesting a transfer to another world. Emma deleted the message without responding. She wasn't going anywhere. Jake needed her, and she wouldn't abandon him just because people were afraid of what they didn't understand. That evening, Emma snuck out of her apartment after dark and made her way to the abandoned research facility. The journey took longer than usual because she had to avoid the main roads, where security patrols might spot her. When she arrived, she found Jake lying in his usual spot on the pile of blankets. His wounds were healing well, and he seemed much stronger than he had been a week ago. His amber eyes brightened when he saw her, and the familiar purring sound filled the room. "Hey, boy," Emma said softly, kneeling beside him. "How are you feeling?" Jake carefully moved his massive head closer to her and made a soft whining sound. Emma had learned to recognize his different vocalizations. This particular sound meant he was worried about something. "I know," she said, stroking the scales on his forehead. "Things are getting complicated, aren't they?" Jake seemed to understand that Emma was in trouble. Over the past few days he had become more alert and protective. Whenever she visited, his amber eyes would track every movement and sound. As if he was preparing to defend her from threats, Emma pulled out the small amount of food she had managed to buy. It wasn't much, just some synthetic protein bars and a few pieces of fruit. Jake sniffed the offering and then gently pushed it back toward her with his snout. "You need to eat," Emma insisted, but Jake refused the food again, making a low sound that Emma had come to interpret as concern. He seemed to understand that she was having trouble getting supplies, and he didn't want to take food away from her. "You're worried about me," Emma realized. "That's why you won't eat." She broke one of the protein bars in half and ate a piece to show Jake it was okay. Only then did he accept his portion of the meal. As Emma prepared to leave that night, Jake made a sound she had never heard before. It was deeper than his usual purr, but gentler than a growl. He was looking toward the colony in the distance, where lights twinkled like stars. "What is it, boy?" Emma asked. Jake's ears twitched and he made the sound again. Emma realized he might be hearing something her human ears couldn't detect. Something was happening in the colony, and Jake knew. Emma looked toward the distant lights and felt a chill run down her spine. Whatever was coming next, she had the feeling that her week of grace was about to end much sooner than expected. Jake moved closer to her and rested his massive head near her feet. In that moment, Emma felt a bond stronger than any she had experienced with another living being. Jake wasn't just a creature she was trying to save. He had become family. And family protected each other, no matter what the world thought about it. The emergency sirens began wailing at exactly 6:23 in the morning. Emma jolted awake in her apartment as the piercing sound cut through the dawn air. She had never heard the colony-wide alert system activated before, and the sound made her blood run cold. Her communication device buzzed with an automated message from Administrator Hayes. "All colonists report to designated emergency shelters immediately. This is not a drill. Long-range sensors have detected an incoming hostile fleet. Estimated arrival time, 18 hours. Emma rushed to her window and looked out at the colony streets. People were running in all directions, some carrying children, others dragging hastily packed bags. The organized calm of New Haven had disappeared, replaced by barely controlled panic. She grabbed her emergency kit and ran outside. The streets were filled with frightened voices and the sound of transport vehicles racing toward the shelters. Emma caught fragments of conversation as she moved through the crowd. "Crimson Horde ships," someone was saying. "At least 50 of them." "We don't have any military defenses," another voice replied. "The Colony Council said we didn't need them out here." Emma felt her heart sink. She had heard stories about the Crimson Horde during her academy training. They were a ruthless alien empire that conquered human colonies for slave labor. Their bioships carried thousands of engineered warriors bred specifically for combat. At the main emergency shelter, Administrator Hayes stood on a platform addressing the gathered colonists. His usually calm demeanor was cracking under the pressure. We have contacted Earth Command for assistance, but the nearest military fleet is 6 days away. We must prepare to evacuate as many people as possible. A man in the crowd shouted, "What? About defending the colony? We can't just abandon everything we've built here." Captain Steve Miller, the head of colony security, stepped forward. His face was grim. Our security force has 30 officers with basic weapons. The Horde fleet is carrying an estimated 10,000 bio-warriors. We can't fight those numbers. Emma pushed through the crowd until she reached the platform. Administrator Hayes, she called out, "I need to speak with you." "It's about Jake." Hayes looked down at her with exhaustion in his eyes. "Dr. Walsh, this is not the time to discuss your pet monster. We have real problems to deal with." "Jake isn't a pet," Emma said firmly. "And he might be the only thing that can help us survive." "What's coming?" The crowd around her began to murmur angrily. Someone yelled, "The monster lady thinks her creature can save us all." Emma ignored the mockery and focused on Hayes. "Jake's species evolved to fight bio-warriors. I've been studying his physical structure. His claws, his speed, his tactical intelligence. He's a natural counter to exactly the kind of enemies we're facing." Dr. Marcus Reed appeared beside the platform. "Hayes, don't listen to her. She's been isolated with that creature for too long. Her judgment is completely compromised." "My judgment is fine," Emma shot back. "But yours has been clouded by fear from the beginning. You've never actually studied Jake. You just assumed he was dangerous because he looks different." Captain Miller looked interested despite his skepticism. "Dr. Walsh, even if your creature could fight, it's just one animal against thousands of enemies." Emma felt frustration building in her chest. "You don't understand. Jake isn't just any predator. His species are called Reapers. They were bred by evolution to hunt pack creatures and bioengineered warriors. One Reaper can take down dozens of enemies if he knows the terrain." Hayes shook his head. "This is fantasy, Dr. Walsh. We need practical solutions, not science fiction." "Dreams. It's not fantasy," Emma insisted. "Jake has been showing me things. He's been trying to communicate about danger coming from space. I think he sensed the Horde ships before our sensors detected them." The crowd was getting restless. Many people wanted to continue with evacuation preparations rather than listen to Emma's seemingly impossible claims. But Captain Miller held up his hand for quiet. "Dr. Walsh, you're asking us to bet the lives of 3,000 people on the combat abilities of a creature that most of us think should have been destroyed weeks ago." Emma looked around at the frightened faces surrounding her. These people had mocked her and thrown rocks at her apartment. They had called her crazy and demanded her removal from the colony. But they were still her people, and she couldn't abandon them. "I'm not asking you to bet anything," she said quietly. "I'm offering to go get Jake and bring him back here. If the Horde breaks through your defenses, maybe he can buy you time to escape." Hayes considered this for a long moment. The sirens continued wailing in the background, reminding everyone that they had less than 18 hours before the attack began. "Even if I agreed to this plan," Hayes said slowly, "how would you control that creature in combat? What's to stop it from attacking our own people once the fighting starts?" Emma felt a moment of doubt. She had never seen Jake in a real fight. Everything she believed about his nature was based on observation and intuition. But then she remembered the gentle way he moved his massive head to avoid scratching her during medical treatments. She remembered how he refused food when he thought she didn't have enough. "Jake won't hurt innocent people," she said with conviction. "He understands the difference between friends and enemies, and he trusts me." Dr. Reed laughed bitterly. "You're talking about a predator like it's a trained dog." "He's more than that," Emma replied. "Jake is intelligent and loyal. He's been trying to protect me since the day I found him. Now I'm asking him to protect all of us." The debate might have continued, but it was interrupted by a young security officer running up to the platform. "Captain Miller," the officer called out breathlessly. "The long-range sensors are picking up something else. The Horde fleet is moving faster than expected. They'll be here in 12 hours, not 18. The crowd erupted in panicked voices. People began pushing toward the exits. Desperate to collect their families and belongings before the attack began, Hayes raised his voice above the chaos. "Dr. Walsh, if you really believe that Creature can help us, then go get it. But understand this, if your Jake turns on our people during the battle, I will hold you personally responsible." Emma nodded grimly. "Understood." As she turned to leave, Captain Miller caught her arm. "Dr. Walsh, I hope you're right about this, because if you're wrong, we're all going to die." Emma looked back at the crowd of frightened colonists. "If I'm wrong, we're going to die anyway. At least this way, we have a chance." The Crimson Horde ships descended from the sky like falling stars, their biohulls pulsing with a sickly red light. Emma watched from the colony's command center as dozens of alien vessels landed in the fields surrounding New Haven. Each ship was the size of a city block, and they disgorged hundreds of warriors within minutes of touchdown. "First wave incoming from the north," Captain Miller announced over the communication system. "All security teams to positions. Civilians remain in the shelters." Emma stood beside Jake at the edge of the colony's main street. The massive Reaper had his amber eyes fixed on the approaching enemy. His body was tense with anticipation, every muscle ready for battle. The wounds from his earlier injuries had healed enough for him to move freely, and Emma could see the predator. He truly was beneath his gentle nature. "Are you ready, boy?" she asked quietly. Jake made a low rumbling sound that Emma had learned meant yes. He understood what was coming better than any of them. His species had been fighting bio-warriors for thousands of years. The first Horde warriors appeared at the colony's outer perimeter. They were grotesque creatures that looked like a nightmare mixture of insect and reptile. Each warrior stood 7 feet tall with 4 arms ending in bone blades. Their chitinous armor gleamed weightly in the afternoon sun, and their compound eyes scanned constantly for targets. Captain Miller's security forces opened fire from prepared positions. Their energy weapons cut down several warriors, but for every one that fell, 3 more took its place. The bio-warriors moved with coordinated precision, using their natural armor to deflect shots while advancing steadily toward the colony center. "They're breaking through Sector 3, a security officer reported over the radio. "We can't hold this position much longer." Emma looked at Jake. "It's time." Jake rose to his full 8-foot height and let out a roar that shook the windows of nearby buildings. The sound was unlike anything Emma had heard before. It was the war cry of an apex predator announcing its presence to the battlefield. The Reaper launched himself forward with incredible speed. Emma had seen Jake move quickly before, but nothing had prepared her for witnessing him in full combat mode. He covered the distance to the first group of bio-warriors in seconds, his powerful legs propelling him like a missile. Jake's first strike took down 3 warriors simultaneously. His claws sliced through their armor like paper, while his massive jaws clamped down on a 4th enemy. The bio-warriors tried to surround him, but Jake was already moving, using his size and speed to prevent them from coordinating their attack. "My God," Captain Miller breathed over the radio. "That thing is tearing them apart." Emma watched in amazement as Jake fought with tactical intelligence she had never imagined. He wasn't just using brute force. He was thinking several moves ahead, using the colony's buildings and streets to create choke points where the warriors couldn't use their numerical advantage. When a group of bio-warriors tried to flank around a building, Jake anticipated their movement and was waiting for them. When they attempted to overwhelm him with direct assault, he retreated to a narrow alley where they could only attack him one at a time. "He's hurting them," Emma realized aloud. "Jake is controlling where they can go." The tide of battle began to shift. With Jake destroying their advance units, Captain Miller's security forces were able to regroup and establish more effective defensive positions. The bio-warriors found themselves caught between Jake's devastating attacks and the colonists' energy. weapons, but the Horde commanders were adapting too. Emma saw larger warrior forms emerging from the bioships. These creatures were twice the size of the regular warriors, with thicker armor and more powerful weapons. They moved toward Jake's position with deliberate purpose. "Jake, look out!" Emma called over the communication system she had been given. Jake's ears twitched at the sound of her voice, and he turned to see the approaching heavy warriors. For a moment, Emma feared that even Jake might be overwhelmed by these larger enemies, but the Reaper had been saving his strength for exactly this moment. Jake moved with fluid grace around the heavy warriors' clumsy attacks, using their size against them. When one warrior overextended with a blade strike, Jake seized its arm and used the creature's own momentum to throw it into a building wall. The battle raged for 3 hours. Emma coordinated with Captain Miller to guide Jake toward the areas where the colony's defenses were weakest. The Reaper seemed to understand the tactical situation instinctively, moving to plug gaps in their defense line before Emma even had to ask. As the sun began to set, something changed in the rhythm of the attack. The bio-warriors started pulling back toward their ships, leaving their dead scattered across the colony's streets. "Are they retreating?" Captain Miller asked. Emma watched the alien ships through her binoculars. Instead of taking off, they were regrouping in formation. "No," she said with growing dread. "They're preparing for something bigger." Jake limped back to Emma's position. He was covered in the acidic blood of bio-warriors, and several new wounds marked his scaled hide. But his amber eyes were still bright with fighting spirit. "You did amazing," Emma told him, checking his injuries. "But this isn't over, is it?" Jake looked toward the Horde ships and made a low, growling sound. Emma had learned to interpret his different vocalizations, and this one meant danger. "Big danger," Captain Miller's voice crackled over the radio. "Dr. Walsh, our sensors are detecting massive energy buildup in the enemy ships. I think they're preparing to bombard the colony from orbit." Emma felt her heart sink. Jake was incredible in ground combat, but he couldn't fight ships in space. If the Horde decided to destroy New Haven from orbit, there was nothing any of them could do to stop it. She looked down at Jake, who was watching her with trust and loyalty in his amber eyes. "We've done everything we can, boy. If they attack from space, we'll have to evacuate to the underground caves." But Jake made a different sound, one Emma had never heard before. He was looking not at the ships, but at something in the distance, beyond them. His ears were perked forward, and his whole body was alert with anticipation. "What is it, Jake? What do you hear?" Jake's answer came in the form of howls echoing across the landscape. Deep, powerful calls that seemed to come from multiple directions at once. Emma felt goosebumps rise on her arms as she realized what was happening. "There are others," she whispered. "Other Reapers." Jake threw back his massive head and howled in response. The sound carried across the colony and beyond, a call to his own kind. Emma finally understood why Jake had been cast out from his pack. He hadn't been too weak or too different. He had been the scout, sent ahead to evaluate the threat. And now he was calling his family home to finish the fight. The Horde commander's voice boomed across New Haven through stolen human communication equipment. "Humans of this colony, you have 1 hour to surrender. Submit to processing and your deaths will be quick. Resist and we will burn your world from orbit." Emma stood with Jake and Captain Miller on the colony's highest observation platform, watching the alien bioships prepare for orbital bombardment. Energy was building in their weapon systems, creating an eerie glow that painted the evening sky in shades of crimson. "The evacuation to the underground caves is almost complete," Miller reported. "But even if we survive the bombardment, they'll just send ground forces to dig us out." Emma placed her hand on Jake's massive shoulder. The Reaper was still alert, his amber eyes fixed on the horizon where his pack's howls had originated. "How long before your family arrives?" she asked him softly. Jake made a series of low sounds that seemed to indicate soon, but not soon enough. The orbital bombardment would begin long before the other Reapers could reach the colony. "Dr. Walsh." Administrator Hayes' voice came over the radio. "I need you and that creature in the caves with the rest of us. If the surface gets hit with orbital weapons, nothing up there will survive. Emma looked at Jake, who was watching her with those intelligent amber eyes. She could see that he understood the situation as well as any human. The bombardment would destroy the colony, but it would also scatter the Horde's ground forces. When Jake's pack arrived, they would face a different kind of battle. "Jake," Emma said quietly, "you need to survive this. Your family will need you when they get here." Jake tilted his massive head and made a sound that Emma had learned meant no. He wasn't going to hide while the colony was destroyed. Before Emma could argue with him, the night sky lit up with streaks of fire. The Horde ships had begun their bombardment. Beams of superheated plasma lanced down from orbit, striking the colony's outer buildings. Each impact created explosions that shook the ground and filled the air with smoke and debris. "The school is gone," someone reported over the radio. "Direct hit on the residential district." Emma watched in horror as buildings she had known for months were vaporized in seconds. The colony that had been her home was being systematically destroyed from space. Jake suddenly moved with urgent purpose. Instead of seeking shelter, he began running toward the areas being hit hardest by the bombardment. Emma chased after him with Captain Miller close behind. "Where is he going?" Miller shouted over the sound of explosions. Emma realized what Jake was doing as they reached a partially collapsed apartment building. Trapped underneath the rubble, she could hear voices calling for help. Jake began digging through the debris, with his powerful claws clearing massive chunks of concrete that would have taken a dozen humans to move. "He's rescuing people," Emma breathed. Jake worked with incredible speed and precision, following the sounds of trapped colonists to their exact locations. When he uncovered a family of 4 trapped in an air pocket, he gently lifted them out with his massive jaws, carrying them to safety like a mother cat moving her kittens. Throughout the bombardment, Jake moved from building to building, saving lives that would have been lost without his help. Emma and Captain Miller coordinated with the security teams to evacuate the people Jake rescued to the underground caves. "I count 43 people saved so far," Miller reported. "That creature has done more rescue work than our entire emergency response team." The bombardment continued for 2 hours. When it finally stopped, most of New Haven's surface structures were destroyed or severely damaged. But Jake's rescue efforts had saved dozens of lives that would have been lost in the rubble. Emma sat exhausted against a pile of debris, watching Jake rest nearby. The Reaper was covered in dust and small cuts from digging through wreckage, but his amber eyes remained alert. "The ground assault is beginning," Miller announced over the radio. "Bio-warriors are landing all around the colony ruins." But this time, something was different. As the Horde warriors spread out through the destroyed buildings, howls began echoing from multiple directions around the colony. Deep, powerful calls that made the night air vibrate with primal energy. Jake lifted his massive head and howled in response. The sound carried across the ruins, and Emma felt a chill of anticipation run down her spine. From the darkness beyond the colony's perimeter, shapes began to emerge. At first, Emma thought she was seeing shadows moving between the broken buildings. Then she realized the shadows were alive, Reapers, dozens of them. Jake's pack had arrived. The newcomers were even larger than Jake, their obsidian scales gleaming in the light from burning debris. They moved with coordinated precision, surrounding the scattered Horde forces like a pack of wolves closing in on prey. Jake rose to his feet and let out another howl. This time, Emma understood what he was communicating. He was telling his pack about the humans, identifying them as allies rather than threats. The battle that followed was unlike anything Emma had ever witnessed. The Reapers fought with tactical brilliance that made the morning's combat look simple by comparison. They used the destroyed buildings as cover, created ambush points in the rubble, and coordinated their attacks with devastating effectiveness. The bio-warriors that had seemed so terrifying that morning were completely outmatched. Their armor and weapons had been designed to fight humans, not creatures that had evolved specifically to hunt their kind. Within an hour, the sounds of battle began to fade. The Horde's ground forces had been systematically destroyed by Jake's pack. In the sky above, the bioships began moving away from the planet. retreating rather than face an enemy they couldn't defeat. As dawn broke over the ruins of New Haven, Emma found herself standing in the colony's central plaza with Jake beside her. The other Reapers had melted back into the wilderness, their job complete. But Jake remained, watching over the humans he had chosen to protect. Administrator Hayes emerged from the underground caves with the surviving colonists. His face was a mixture of exhaustion, gratitude, and shame as he approached Emma and Jake. "Dr. Walsh," he said quietly, "I owe you an apology, we all do." Emma looked around at the faces of people who had mocked her just days before. Now they watched Jake with respect and wonder instead of fear. "Jake doesn't need your apology," Emma replied. "He needs your acceptance. This is his home too now." Dr. Marcus Reed stepped forward from the crowd. The man who had called Jake a monster looked humbled and ashamed. "Dr. Walsh, I was wrong about everything. That creature ... Jake, he saved my daughter's life during the bombardment. I don't know how to thank him." Emma smiled and patted Jake's massive shoulder. "Just treat him like family. That's all he's ever wanted." Captain Miller approached with a proposal from the Colony Council. "Dr. Walsh, we'd like to make Jake an official protector of New Haven, full citizenship, with all the rights and protections that entails." Emma looked at Jake, who was watching her with those intelligent amber eyes. "What do you think, boy? Want to be an official citizen?" Jake made the rumbling purr sound that meant happiness. He had found what he had been searching for all along. A place where he belonged, and a family that accepted him for who he truly was. As the sun rose higher over the ruins of their colony, Emma realized that they would rebuild New Haven stronger than before. And this time, they would build it with the understanding that family comes in many forms, and that sometimes the most unlikely friendships can save everyone. Jake had taught them that being different didn't make someone dangerous, it made them special, and sometimes being special was exactly what the world needed most.